Hey, what's up guys? This is Tony, and today we're talking about iOS 11.4 and why it's going to be the most useless update that Apple has ever pushed to its users. So I wanted to start this video off talking about major point updates, and what I mean by this is when you see Apple release something like iOS 11.x, so like 11.1, 11.2, 11.3, etc. In the past, these point updates have typically added some major new features to iOS that everyone can take advantage of. You know, take Apple's latest iOS 11.3 update, for example. The general iOS user received some powerful new features like the battery life beta and health app improvements, but at the same time, 11.3 allowed users to have fun with new Animojis and ARKit upgrades. But in the case of iOS 11.4, Apple really isn't rolling out any new features that are applicable to everyone, and I'll debrief what I mean by this in just a second. But as a preface to this video, iOS 11.4 is going to add three main features that I want to discuss and debunk a little bit, as they're really not that groundbreaking. The main features I wanted to talk about are messages in the cloud, AirPlay 2, and Apple's new schoolwork app, as well as the ClassKit Framework to go along with it. So initially, the whole purpose of iOS 11.4, of why it's being created in the first place, is to roll out new features for teachers and students. The schoolwork app, for example, is specifically designed for teachers to hand out information, make assignments, and keep track of their students' progress. Along with that, the ClassKit framework is just the general framework created for developers to easily design apps for educational purposes. But again, these new features are entirely useless to the general public, and I'm guessing that the schoolwork app will not ship on stock iOS, but it will most likely be on the App Store for educational institutions. So it's great that Apple is working on updating their OS to be more classroom-friendly, but you would think these new features would also roll out with others that apply to the general public. Now, I know everyone that's made it this far in this video has to be thinking, you idiot, that's what AirPlay 2 and messages in the cloud is going to be for, but I would have to disagree. While it's been a long time coming for both of these features to be released, they are both highly anticipated new features of iOS. I really don't think that you can argue that these will be used by everyone that owns an iOS device. These new features are entirely devoted to users that are heavily invested and well established within Apple's ecosystem. I mean, let's start with messages in the cloud. This feature will now store messages in our iCloud storage rather than on our phone's internal storage. So two major benefits to this will be, one, it will free up some space on our iPhone and move that data to the cloud, and secondly, this will improve the cross-platform experience for users that have an iPad or Mac. It will more accurately keep all of our messages and message attachments and threads in sync. If, for example, you delete a message thread on one device, it will now delete it across all devices, and I could also see this feature being very useful when you set up a new phone for the first time. Once you sign into iCloud, all of your previous conversations will download and sync to that new device. But again, let's take a step back. If you don't have a second Apple device like an iPad or a Macintosh computer, this cross-platform enhancement will not apply to you. Secondly, if you're not subscribed to an upgraded iCloud storage plan, the messages in the cloud feature is going to fill up that free 5 GB of cloud storage extremely fast. I mean, when you compare the 5 GB of cloud storage to that of the 64 GB internally on your iPhone 8 or 10, your phone's built-in storage will hold a lot more of your messages and attachments than the cloud ever could. Now, this feature could be very useful for the iPhone 5S, 6, or 6S users that only have 16 GB of storage on their devices, but again, if this feature simply puts your messages and attachments on the cloud, you will very quickly find yourself in the situation where you need to upgrade your iCloud storage plan to continue using this service. I mean, on my personal phone, my messages take up 6 GB of space, which means they already won't fit on a free iCloud storage plan. Alright, so real fast, I wanted to loop back to getting a new phone. Now, this feature will be really nice when you get a new phone or when you restore your phone and set it up from scratch. That will be nice to download your messages, but again, I don't think the general population will even notice this feature or take full advantage of its potential, especially considering there's an easy workaround to retrieve old message threads by backing up your old device and restoring said backup to your new one. Again, this is a rather awesome feature that will make your conjoined iPhone, iPad, and Mac experience better, yes, but only if you have multiple devices to work with in the first place. Alright, so on to the next major feature in quotes, being AirPlay 2. With AirPlay 2, you can now stream to multiple AirPlay compatible devices simultaneously, meaning you can stream the same audio to both, or you can control separate audio playback from each device as well, all within the control center. And very lastly, Siri can now be used to control playback on other devices. As an example, you can now ask Siri to play videos or music off of your Apple TV. As well as the Apple TV, once a HomePod OS update comes out, we should be able to set them up in a stereo pair and stream music to them, or use Siri directly on the HomePod to play music off of both of them. Because as for now, users with 2 HomePods can pretty much only use one of them at a time. So again, these updates are great for people that have an Apple TV or have HomePods. AirPlay 2 has been a highly anticipated new feature for a long time that a ton of users have requested. But again, back to my earlier point in this video, this feature is entirely useless unless you have multiple AirPlay devices. It will not apply to anyone who has an iPhone, and that is their only Apple device. It's cool that you can use Siri to play things on the Apple TV, but let's be honest, the Apple TV is one of the least popular streaming devices due to its limited feature list and high price point. I myself do not have one exactly for that reason, as my gaming console can do more than it. Secondly, while the HomePod pairing is a major new eye-catching feature for anyone that has 2 HomePods, I know the frustration of buying 2 HomePods only to find out that you can use one at a time for the time being until a software update comes out for them. I will say the sound on the HomePod is absolutely astonishing, but again, with its limited feature list, with Siri not being capable of doing much on it, and with its high price point, it really didn't take off as Apple expected it to. I can't imagine everyday users having a HomePod, let alone 2 of them to take advantage of this feature. I myself even got rid of my HomePods as I felt the $30 Amazon Dot could do more than Siri on the $349 HomePod. With stereo pairing, I may have to give them another shot, but again, that really doesn't seem like a huge selling point to me as a consumer to spend $700 on a smart speaker system that really isn't that intelligent. Alright, so I know I got a little off topic there and I wanted to reel things back in a bit. While AirPlay 2 is going to be an awesome feature for those that have an Apple TV and multiple HomePods, I really don't see that many users taking advantage of it. I mean, when it comes down to it, if you don't have an Apple TV or a HomePod or an AirPlay compatible device, this new feature does not apply to you at all. If you don't have a Mac or an iPad, the new messages in the cloud feature does not apply to you either. And if you're not currently a student or a teacher, I highly doubt you will ever see the schoolwork app in use. These new features are pretty awesome, and I will say probably rather difficult to pull off. I doubt they were that easy for Apple to accomplish, as they're pretty complex new features, but with all that being said, these new features are entirely devoted to users that are heavily invested and well established within Apple's ecosystem. In the end, I'll reiterate my main point of this video. If you're not heavily invested in Apple's ecosystem, iOS 11.4 won't be adding any new groundbreaking features for you. Sure, there are some security enhancements, some slight performance boosts, but off the top of my head, the only thing that I can think that every single iOS user could take advantage of is Apple's new Product Red wallpaper. I mean, hooray, a 2GB plus download for a new wallpaper-free device. But I think the biggest thing that has bugged me about the iOS 11.4 update and the iOS 11.3 update for that matter is that messages in the cloud and AirPlay 2 were originally supposed to ship with iOS 11.3. They were present in all the betas of iOS 11.3, but on launch day, Apple stripped away these features and simply added them to the iOS 11.4 new feature list. I think that's the thing that everyone has forgotten about, is that we should already have these new features. And Apple did not mention anything in regards to this move. Was it taking longer to perfect these features than initial prediction? Nobody really knows. Apple just stripped them from the official 11.3 update and has yet to publicly address why. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I know it was a little bit contradictory to what I usually say about new Apple stuff, but I'm hoping for future videos to be a little bit more objective when looking at new Apple releases. I'll try not to be entirely negative towards Apple, but at the same time, not completely oblivious to Apple's flaws. They've been such an amazing company to follow, but as of late, they really seem to be getting a bit full of themselves, and I hope videos like these will allow everyone to take a step back and realize the actual value of what Apple is giving them from an objective point of view. Anyway, iOS 11.4 should be released to the public any day now, anytime between now and June 4th when Apple is holding this year's developer conference. Stay tuned for more updates on that as the date approaches, but most importantly, get ready for the first developer beta of iOS 12. That is just a few weeks away, guys, and I'm super stoked. Anyway, thank you guys so much for watching and making it to the end of my video. If you enjoyed it, please let me know with a thumbs up, and if you want to see more videos just like this, don't forget to subscribe. Anyway guys, until next time, this is Tony, signing out.